PrepsNetwork.com. I'm Evan Wren, and this is the Big Country Preps Wednesday night podcast, our weekly look at the area athletic scene, what happened last week, and what's going on this week. I'm here with my partner, Dan Youngblood, via Zoom. And tonight, Dan, we're honored to have TLCA, Abilene TLCA head football coach Jeremy Kirk, who just chalked up his first win there with the Eagles over Monday. And he's going to join us to talk a little bit about that win here in a moment.
Yeah, first 11-man win for Abilene TLCA. They had the first year as a 6-man program, but they since switching to 11-man, they had not won a game, went 0-10 last year, and this was a huge deal for him. And I'm excited to talk to him. I having been on some unsuccessful baseball teams during my high school days, I understand what that's like when the wins aren't coming frequently, but I also understand what it means when you do get one. So I'm really excited to talk to Coach Kirk about kind of what it meant to those kids, what it meant to his program, because this is also a unique situation in that is a brand new program. You're talking about one that's existed for about 3 years now. And really every little thing they do is a building block onto what they're trying to do. They are just now, laying the foundation. So it's gonna be cool to talk to him. And like you said, we're honored to have him here today.
All right, before we get going, we want to thank a couple of our sponsors. First and foremost, for the love of the game broadcasting, and our old friend Terry Slavens, owner of K-Legs 93.5 FM out of Breckenridge, 97.7 FM KATX out of Eastland, Classic Country AM 1330 out of Graham, 94.7 FM KWKQ out of Graham, KROO 1430 AM out of Breck, and KWBY 98.5 FM out of Ranger. That is for the love of the game broadcasting. Also, Rob Durham, sales consultant up at Bear, Chevrolet Buick Cadillac up in Breckenridge. If you're in the market for a vehicle, new or used, give Rob a shout. He's one of the nicest guys you're ever going to meet. Call him at 254-559-2266. That's Rob Durham, Bear, Chevrolet Buick Cadillac in Breckenridge. All right, and before we get going, we want to remind you YouTubers to please hit the subscribe button. And along with that, once that pops up, hit the little bell that goes with it. That way you'll get notifications each and every time Big Country Preps comes up with a new podcast. Please do that. Hit the subscribe button, won't you please? We appreciate it.
All right, and with that, we'll jump in. Before we get Coach Kirk on, jump in real briefly, talk about the games we were at last week. One of those was the Monday TLCA game, which we'll be talking a lot about with Coach Kirk. But you were at a fun one in the Big Country Preps game of the week. Goldthwaite also snapping a losing streak there against a Santo program that's really developed some consistency. So a big win for the Eagles.
Yeah, Goldthwaite's an interesting story. They've got, they struggled last year, but they brought most of their people back, but they also had a very good JV group to bring up along with them. So they've got not only, a lot more experience, but they've got some talented newcomers coming in to back them up. So that's an interesting story. And now they're 1-1. And what people don't realize, or some don't realize, is they gave Crawford a top 10 team all they wanted in week one. Lost 28-14 on the road at Crawford. And I'll tell you right now, if you give Crawford that kind of game on the road, that's a red flag for the area to keep an eye on these guys. From what I saw Friday night, one observation about Santo, that's going to be a good football team as well. Just too many mistakes that night. 14 penalties. That's Coach Mann. That's not the way they want to run things. And when you're an option team and you're putting yourself behind the chains all night long, it's deadly. So it may have been a different ball game had Santo not made so many mistakes. But Goldthwaite was there, took advantage of the mistakes, executed when they had to, and they not only ran the ball well, but they can throw the ball well. And some clutch situations, they showed the ability to throw in traffic. These were all good signs. I liked what I saw from Goldthwaite.
Yeah, and that Crawford game, I think, was a head turner for both you and I, which is why we ended up with probably a Big Country Preps game of the week that probably turned some heads. It probably was kind of off the beaten path for some folks, but a great game. I was obviously at the Crosstown Showdown, the 63rd playing between Abilene High and Cooper, and Abilene High won that one 26-7. The Eagles weren't as clean offensively as they had been in previous showings, but the defense continued to play really well. This Abilene High team's very good. I'm excited about this week. They got a game against a Midland Legacy team, which is one of the best offensive teams really in the state at the big school level. So that's going to be a good challenge for them. But a good win over Cooper. Cooper's still, kind of figuring out what they are offensively, especially. I thought they played pretty well defensively in terms of slowing down Abilene High. But as that game always is, I thought it was a good one for both teams. Both teams will grow from it, but this Abilene High team is one to definitely take seriously. It's going to play some good football this year, so make sure y'all are paying attention to that.
You ready to talk to Coach Kirk?
Yeah, it looks like he's ready, so let's go ahead and get him on.
And joining us now, Abilene TLCA football coach Jeremy Kirk. Coach, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Coach, first off, congratulations on the win. Tell us about getting that first win over Monday and just how terrific that must have felt.
Man, it was a big monkey off our back, as we say around here. That was our goal going into the year, was to get the monkey off your back and find a little bit of success. And we felt like, we had a good chance going into that game with the opportunity to win one, and was so fortunate to pull it out. Monday made a great run at us in the fourth quarter. Had a chance to win it. Kid's foot's out of the side of the end zone on a catch that he made. So it was a game of two teams that were pretty equal, and give Coach Langston a credit over there. His team fought hard, and glad we come out with a win.
And Coach, you mentioned it. These things can't be easy. It always had that one came right down to the wire. A lot of stress. What was it like from the sidelines watching that game kind of play out and end the way that it did?
Man, it was definitely it was one of those you want to be in. Like, it's a nail biter. You want to be there. Full deal. I think that was the loudest I think I've ever heard our fans get. And so it was just an awesome atmosphere, and our kids got to see what it's like to be in a game like that. A previous week we get blown out by Water Valley, and we just kept telling them, listen, we're going to get there. We're going to find some success. And we felt like we had a good week of practice, and that week of practice led into a great football game on Saturday night.
Coach, this thing got a lot, some pretty good media attention. I mean, I saw it all over the place, online. And tell us about the next day, because word was out that you guys had won pretty thoroughly out. Tell us what it was like for you. How many text messages did you get? How many people, former colleagues, did you hear from?
Man, I heard from just about all of them that I've been around. One of the greatest things is this profession, and when somebody gets their first win, whether it be in basketball, baseball, football, whatever it is, those guys that you've been a part of find a way to get a message to you and tell you congratulations. One of the biggest messages I got was from Dean Edwards over at Clyde. He's the head basketball coach, and we were together at Stanford, coached football together and basketball together, and just having those mentors I had in him and Ronnie Casey and David Yeager, who was at DeLeon at one time. All those guys text me, congratulations on the win, and I couldn't be more excited to see those texts when I got them.
And Coach, obviously your situation at TLCA is unique. The track to where y'all are now has been unique, and that y'all are starting a brand new program, started at the 6-man level and continue to grow. Just what was that transition like? And just talk about kind of what it's like when you are starting a program from scratch. How's that process kind of going?
Man, it has been a long one. We've talked about this, when I got here, that we're really building from the ground up and from the dirt up, and we laid a little bit of a foundation with 6-man, and I come in the year as realignment was coming, and when the superintendent at the main campus in San Angelo called me and said, Coach, what do you want to do? And I pretty much told him, I said, we need to go 11, man. That's where we're going to be in 2 years anyway. We're already there. We're well beyond those numbers. And so I look for us to make one more move and when realignment comes out. But that has been the process, and our kids just have learned to buy in. Like, they're learning to buy in the weight room, on the football field, all of that stuff. The biggest struggle for me has been a practice football field. My first year, we practiced out behind the school, and it was all dirt. There was no grass. And then the next year, I got to deal with the city of Abilene. We used the league complex, but had to be off every day between 5:15 and 5:30 for our flag football teams, local flag football teams. So I don't know if you've been by the campus lately, but I was fortunate enough to get the guys higher than me to buy in that we need the football field, and we went from dirt to grass from November 2022 to August 23.
Coach, what are some of the other challenges of coaching at a charter school? The one thing that you can look at, I mean, as an example, San Angelo TLCA, while they've had their struggles, if you look at their history, they've also had they've got a great basketball program going now, but they've had their moments in the sun in football, so it can be done if you look at them as an example.
Yes, sir. It's a challenge every time we come out. And every year we don't know what kids we're getting, they show up and we take them. And so just knowing what kids you're getting kind of helps with your program. But again, you said it, San Angelo TLCA has made that possible, and they've had some success. So I'm hoping that as we continue to have success on the football field, as we gain some success on the volleyball court, as we've had over the last 2 years, then maybe we'll continue to keep kids around longer. And so I think that's the biggest challenge for a charter school.
And Coach, kind of back to what we talked a little bit earlier about the kind of y'all's program track, starting in that 6-man. What was that like for you as a guy with an 11-man background that wanted to play 11-man football, coaching those early years in the 6-man ranks?
Man, that was a challenge. I'll be honest with you. 6-man is another brotherhood. Like those guys, they'll share anything with you. That was one thing I learned. They'll share anything at all with you. And so I enjoyed it for the year that I did it, but I don't feel like that's the type of guy I am. I'm an 11-man guy. I like to have all 11 on the field. And so it was definitely a challenge, but I learned a whole lot.
Coach, with the challenge that you've got with a new program at a charter school, I'll tell you what, you could have landed in a lot easier district than the one that you're in. That's that's almost, man, but can you talk a little bit about that? If you want to face a tough district, you got it.
Yes, sir. So when realignment come out and everybody was asking me questions, where do you think you're going to be? I really felt we would go more north. We would be like Haskell, Monday, that area. And so I'd scheduled some of these teams as my preseason schedule. So when district come out, I had to, revamp a whole new schedule. And so, we definitely did not get done well in our district. But I'm going to tell you what, I think it's made our kids see what the game of football is like. When you got likes of Albany, a state champion, you got Roscoe, you got Cross Plains, you got Hamlin, who was coming off of a year where they had a chance, were in the state game at one point. All those kids saw that success. And so district is definitely hard, but I will say the fellow coaches in the district understand where I am and understand where we're trying to get. And they've been very, very, I say nice about the situation, and they've helped me out a lot.
And Coach, you kind of mentioned getting that monkey off your back. And I remember when we did our feature on Jonathan Rico in the preseason, he had mentioned how important it was him to get that first win in an 11-man. One thing that I think is kind of interesting is y'all are really laying the foundation brick by brick, building brick by brick. What's kind of the challenge for you there, just in terms of kind of, goal setting and managing expectations and those sorts of things when you kind of know you're climbing an uphill battle right now to get where y'all want to go?
Yes, sir. I think when we go in, my coaching staff and myself, when we go in, we talk about goals for each year. And our number one goal this year was to get the monkey off our back and get a win. We're there. Now we move on to that next goal. Hey, let's make it win number 2. Let's win a district game. You know what I mean? So it's just, we're trying to take small steps, like you said, building it brick by brick. If we can take those small steps, we'll eventually have some success, and so our freshmen, our younger kids, freshmen and sophomores, are getting a lot of playing time.
Coach, tell us about how gratifying it was for you personally. It just had to do your heart good to see the smiles on the kids' faces, the parents, all that, all the work that you put in. Tell us about that.
Yes, sir. It was definitely gratifying. I know Brandon McAuliffe was there. He was on the sideline, and Brandon and I have become pretty good friends over the last few years. And having him there to capture the moment of, really, honestly, I'll be honest with you, me and my wife, she's been by my side for a long time. And so it was pretty emotional for both her and I. And then my son, Jonathan Kirk, who's a senior this year, number 11, he goes from winning to a program that has no success at all, the TLCA. So to see the smile on his face and know how excited I was for him, and him to know how exciting it was for me, it was really, really gratifying. And then watching our fans interact with our kids was awesome.
And incidentally, the photos that will be running throughout, or have been running throughout this podcast, were taken by Brandon McAuliffe at that ball game.
I'll tell you what, you guys do a great job covering all of us in this area, and we couldn't be more proud for you guys to be doing that for us.
We appreciate it. And that kind of leads me into the last question. Both Evan and I have been around long enough that you have a coach on your staff who we covered back in his Baird days, a really good player, sir. Obviously. Your OC, Dakota Fannin, a guy who was a great player in our area for several years. Just talk about your staff. You got some young guys in your staff, some energetic guys. It seems like everybody's kind of in this together. A lot of energy on that staff.
I'm going to interrupt. Just the fact that Dakota Fannin is now an OC is living proof that I'm an old man. I cannot believe it. Well, I'm an old man. Go ahead.
Evan, I was from Anson, so I'm sure at some point you covered me. I graduated from Anson in 2004, so I'm sure at some point you covered me. But Dakota Fannin, man, he is a awesome young man, and he's become a great young coach. One thing last year, I had a guy, a man by the name of Stephen Ward, a coach by the name of Stephen Ward, who was my OC last year and had some things come up and couldn't do it this year. And Dakota just fit that bill for me. So him as my OC. Then I have I have three younger guys again. Tyler Burchett, who's my head basketball coach. He's really become my co-defensive coordinator. He's kind of helped me out a whole lot on the defensive side of the football. And then you have Michael Stevens and Cameron Rocket, who both are head coaches as well in another sport. I got a head track coach and a head softball coach. And so they've all had to learn on the run, as I say. I learned from a great coach in Ronnie Casey that was at Stanford when I was there. And so a lot of the stuff that I do and the way I handle my staff is because of Ronnie. And so it's been awesome. And these young guys are energetic. They're fired up. The picture of me jumping up, hugging that kid, Dakota, I think he did that with some other kids. It's about that. It's about the kids. It's not about us getting wins or us getting losses. It's about the kids and the success that they have on the field.
Well, Coach, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll obviously be keeping a close eye on you and staying in touch as always. Best of luck to you the rest of the way.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And thank you guys for taking care of us.
And that was Abilene TLCA football coach Jeremy Kirk, and it was a nice visit. I enjoyed that. It's nice to see those kids win after all the work they put in, because they're out there working too.
Yeah, for sure. And that's something that, like I said, kind of at the beginning, is I can relate to, having played on maybe one of the world's worst large school baseball teams my senior year in high school. I remember
was because of the pitching. There was a pitching problem.
On the days I was on the mound, maybe, but I remember we won our last game of the season my senior year. It was the only district game we won that season. You would have thought we won. It was Game 7 of the World Series. So I can relate to those kids. I know what that feels like when you're not having a ton of success, to get a big win like that and kind of get that monkey off your back, like he said. So I really do have a soft spot for those kids, because, like you said, those kids are working. This is a program that's really trying to build something. So I enjoyed that conversation as well, talking with Coach Kirk and kind of just getting some of the background on what he's trying to do there, because that's something you see the final scores, you see some of those things, but there are people behind that are trying to do something. So it's cool to talk to him about that, and it was obviously cool to see them get that victory last week.
Absolutely. And with that, it's about time to wrap up this edition of the Big Country Preps Wednesday night podcast. But before we do that, we want to remind you we got 3 separate subscription packages at Big Country Preps. We've got a monthly for $5 a month. We've got a semi-annual 6-month subscription where we knock that price down to $4 a month. And then we've got an annual 12-month subscription where we knock that price down to $3 a month, $36 for a full year of Big Country High School athletic coverage.
And we'd also like to remind you that if you see a photo you like in any one of our galleries, those are available for purchase. We have photo downloads available for $7, as well as some keepsakes and prints. So make sure you check those out. As you're scrolling through the site, you'll notice pretty quickly we take a lot of photos from these games we're at, and we try to get to a whole lot of games. That's something that we really enjoy doing, and something we are very proud of here at BigCountryPreps.com.
All Big Country, all high school, all the time. Welcome home.